All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Muzi the Poet. Today I am joined by the esteemed, the renowned, the
Steamed.
menace on the streets.
That's crazy, bro.
My best friend Chris, one of my best friends, one of my oldest friends. I've known him for the better part of, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And
10,
I thought he'd
11,
be,
something.
yeah, I thought he'd be the best first guest on. I haven't really come up with a title for the podcast yet, so maybe that's something we could brainstorm on this first chat. But I thought he'd be the best person to talk to, first of all, to gain an insight into me, but also to just sort of discuss various topics and yeah, kind of like explore how him and I have been able to maintain the friendship we have, but also grow together, which I feel like is important given everything that we're surrounded by. I feel like a lot of things going on in the world at the moment are kind of preventing people from having dialogue. So I feel, the person I've spoken to the most over the years would be the best sort of start to have that with. So here we are.
Happy
Chris,
to be
welcome.
here, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, bro.
You're very welcome. I'm very welcome. How have you been?
I'm always well, man. Thank God. Thank God.
Thank God, thank God.
And yourself?
Yeah, man, I've been good. I've been good. Work has been good. Um, I think I've started to recently feel a bit more comfortable with taking things at my own pace. I feel like even now, like at the PhD level,
Hmm.
like there are still people who are like, do you know what I mean? Maybe closer to the end of their PhD and stuff like that. And I do slip into those moments where I'm comparing my progress to theirs, but
Yeah.
I kind of have to remind myself that it's really my own journey that I'm on, and it wouldn't be fair for me to compare someone who's maybe 2 or 3 years ahead in terms of the techniques they've got experience on and stuff like that to me who's still learning those sorts of things. So yeah, I
100%,
think
man.
I'm making myself safer, if that makes sense. Like
Mm.
I'm not putting the same pressure on myself. I'm accepting more of like responding to my body, prioritizing my health, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So obviously, I think a couple of weeks ago I was ill and I texted you, um, and I mentioned that it's hard, like taking a week off from work to just get better. Like there's that guilt of
Yeah,
not being at work and doing stuff, but
100%. And even it just feels weird not working.
yeah, yeah, that too, man. That
Like it
too.
just feels strange not being at work. It's like, what do I do? What do I do with my
So
time?
you were on holiday recently. Tell us more about your holiday, and you came back to the UK. So how was it for you? Obviously, not necessarily being sick, but being away from the workplace and then having to come back. What were the
To
sort of
be fair, to be
feelings?
fair, definitely much needed.
Mm,
Holiday was much needed. Although it was weird not being at work, yeah, like I was saying, a break was definitely needed. But it was good to spend time with family, obviously,
mm.
eat good food, be in the sun, you know what I'm saying, switch up the environment. So yeah, it was good, man. It was good. Getting back to it, getting back to work. To be fair, it wasn't really hard. I just picked up from where I left off, really.
Mm.
So yeah, it was all
Was there
good though.
anything? Was there anything that you felt like because maybe you can tell the viewers how long you've been working for, what area you're in.
Oh yeah.
Have there been any practices that you've learned or that you were already doing maybe that you could have adapted for your current role that you feel like whenever you do take a break and come back that they help you sort of maintain productivity? Because one thing people nowadays do, right, is they'll emphasize either or. Like they'll be someone who's like all into productivity and had to be
Yeah.
like, all action based and you got to do this, you got to have like to-do lists, you have to do, all of those sorts of things. But then you also have the people who are like actively trying to steer the conversation away from work and say, okay, you have to like focus on the other aspect of life and
Mhm.
maintaining the work-life balance. And you have a 9 to 5, then you have a 5 to 9, right? Like there are all those
Mhm.
sorts of conversations happening in that space. So what is it that you do day to day that you feel like keeps you productive? And then when you take time away, is there anything that you do that when you come back to like just the office that you're like, okay, now I can get back into the grind again?
I think being at work, having a checklist helps.
Okay.
Something as simple as that, because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of different things I have to do. So having that checklist kind of helps me see where I'm at, what I've still got to work through, and all that kinds of stuff. And obviously, my manager will want me to do more things, so I can just add on to that checklist, like I was saying. Productivity. I think what you do outside is very important. Things for me, something that's very important for me is going to the gym. Stuff like that just helps me clear my mind and like reset, really, especially after a day of work. Going to the gym just helps you reset, get back in that mindset of I've got a day tomorrow, I've got work tomorrow. Let's get back to this, really. Having something to work on outside of obviously your job and obviously stuff like the gym, which I think is essential. I think having something else to work on is very important as well. Like for example, for me, I have a brand that I'm working on. Me and one of my friends, we call it The Liar. And really, we just want to inspire people, really. That's what we want to do.
Is that what it is? Because I've seen the Instagram account and I've seen the Instagram handle, but I'm like, what is this word, bro?
Yeah.
Okay,
Nah,
okay.
that's us really. Just want to inspire people. I think when it comes to motivating and that kind of stuff, a lot of the stuff I'm seeing is just regurgitated, you know. Like everyone's kind of saying the same things. So in that space, we kind of wanted to be unique, you know, bring our own life experiences, our own wisdom to the table. Obviously, as we're still learning as well, it's good to look back on because then we can see, oh, like we were saying this back then, but now we're saying this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay. So what would you say an example of that is? Like what's an example of something that you learned back then that now is just completely different?
To be fair, we haven't been running it for too long. I think we've been running it since the summer. That's when we started it. So I haven't actually got anything yet.
Okay.
But if I do get something, I'll bring it up. But yeah, man, that's a little project thing that we've been working on. We've got some short films coming out as well, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, that's been.
Are you gonna be in any of the short films?
Nah, I don't think so. I don't think I haven't put I've never tried that. It's not something I've tried myself.
Do you reckon it's something you might do? Like put yourself out there, step outside
you know
the
what?
box.
If to get on my comfort zone, maybe so. But you know what? I actually think you'll be a good actor. I do think you know what? I do think it's actually something you could do, bro.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? I remember, I don't know if it was related to the Lion project, but I remember you posted on your story and I messaged you about it, I think it was either one of your friends or maybe a friend of a friend who was filming a short film project, and they were looking for like an extra or something, like some role. And yeah, I wanted to do it. I messaged him and he was like, oh, you know, send like, you know, some headshots and any experience you have to this email. But then the catch was just the commitment part. Like you have to commit to like this amount of time of filming. So
yeah,
I feel like as much as I'd want to like jump into that side of like just filming and acting and stuff like that, I'd love to do it. It's just a time thing. So obviously, if you know the brother who's doing the short film stuff or any short film projects that you have coming up, and you need someone to be in them, I'm completely down.
I'll keep you in mind, bro.
Yeah, man, keep me in mind. Keep me in mind. Do you know what it is? I feel the short film genre is so much more. It's so much more digestible. I feel like longer films, longer content, like you need a certain level of patience, and I feel like a lot of the maybe critics nowadays, you know, they kind of watch something and they review it based on certain value factors, but that's all based on like just I don't know, audience validation, right? Like, oh, how did people react, stuff like that. But there are some films, like, for example, I don't know, some of the Marvel films back in the day, or even just old films which are not part of any franchise, just independent filmmakers. Like, when you watch them now, they don't maybe strike the same, but maybe the deeper lesson in it is still, do you know what I mean? It's still like it's lasted for as long as it has. So
100%.
when you kind of compare and contrast those two things, you kind of realize that, maybe when it comes to short films, it's a way of kind of being flexible, right? Because like
Exactly.
nowadays people are used to watching shorter content anyway. But now if someone's kind of put the time and effort into making a short film or a short sort of project, do you know what I mean? It might not necessarily get the same exposure or the same reaction that maybe a larger film project would, but it's still it's a beginning, right? It's that first step. And I think a good
Exactly.
example of that is a Rap Man, right? He
Yeah.
share a story back in secondary school.
Yeah.
I never really watched any of them. I still to this day don't know who Sharo is. I don't know what his story was. But the reaction I used to see on Facebook, on their Link Up TV page, just that whole storytelling method of rapping, or just, sharing, like, or expressing yourself artistically. To see Rap Man now produce a Netflix show that's gone to #1 is
That's exactly.
insane. Because it's
It's
like,
amazing, isn't it?
you'd never think that that kind of I don't know, like, genre of film or even TV show would ever be filmed in, like, South London. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's mad, bro.
he definitely put South London, but London in general, on the map. Gave just people of a minority background the opportunity that they necessarily wouldn't get. And you still kind of notice it, right? Like, anytime you go and watch like a big blockbuster film or something, like, the amount of black people in it aren't as much, and even the ones that are in it, or the people of
Yeah,
color that are in it, it's like people
100%.
who've been in it for like a while, like Samuel Jackson or someone, or like Don Cheadle, like these people have been in, do you know what I mean, acting for years. So seeing new talent emerge is really really reassuring. And yeah, I'd definitely be up for
I
sure.
like the whole short film stuff because I think the world's shifting, bro. Like even
Mm,
now, like short form content is running. It's running
mm,
things.
100%, 100%.
Like TikTok.
Yes.
TikTok's mad. The amount of I think I seen something the other day, a statistic. It was like 95% of um children under the age of 17, 95% have TikTok downloaded on their phones. I said that
Is
is
it?
crazy, and that is
Damn.
insane.
Why
But
do you reckon? Why do you reckon that is though? Like, what is it about short film content, especially like, because this is something that you might be working on with your friends? What do you think it is about that sort of approach to just filming a story or telling a story or selling your brand that you think resonates with young people, other than the fact that they're kind of just exposed to, just one or two videos every day?
I think it'd be a shorter, especially with attention spans these days. I think that's something that will be. I think that's definitely something that's gonna, draw them in.
Mm,
I think it's kind of. I feel like it's easier to portray a message as well
mm-hmm,
over a shorter film.
mm-hmm,
You feel what I'm saying? But apart from that, I still feel like longer films do have their place, and they'll always have their place.
mm.
But I do think short films they're gonna be on the rise, definitely.
So do you
I think they've
reckon?
already been on the rise. So go
Mm,
on.
so do you reckon, like, for your brand, that the next step from just posting more regularly and like kind of having that um, form of content where you're like reflecting almost between what you used to know and what you now know, or what you're learning at the moment? Do you reckon the next step in like the evolution of the brand is short film content to maybe even longer film projects where you're maybe working with people who are sort of in the same sort of space as you, or have the same message as you?
To be fair, it's not really something that we spoke about, but Mate, I would love to do a longer film. I would love.
Do you reckon that's the next conversation to have?
Maybe so. I do think that would be something in the future, though. I don't see that being anything like in the near future. I do think that will be, something that we have to work towards. But I would love to do something like that, especially I personally would love to do it in the fantasy kind of setting. That I feel like that would be sick. I love I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one day definitely, but I think we need to pump out these short films first. I think once we get that down.
Do you know like what the first short film will be? Like, is it something that you can share? Is it an exclusive?
To be fair, I haven't. We haven't been working on it.
Okay.
Nothing's been set in motion yet completely.
Okay.
But I will say it's actually a horror film.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a horror film.
Interesting. And what made you choose horror?
To be fair, that'll be more my partner's side of things. I think he was the one who came up with the idea for this one. Obviously, I've been helping, but this one has been mainly his idea. But the concept of the movie, I do feel like it's something that hasn't been explored.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something you can share, or is that more like
so
planning stages at the moment, or
so the concept that we're gonna dive into basically is sleep paralysis.
Oh, okay.
That's what we want to look into. We want to look into sleep paralysis, kind of explore that. But we still obviously want to make it relatable. We don't want to make it some mad. It's gonna be supernatural, but we don't want to make it some mad crazy some mad crazy thing. We still want it to be relatable. So yeah, that's the one currently that we're working on. Okay. I haven't really I haven't done anything on that in a while. Obviously being on holiday, getting back to work and stuff, but that's really what we're working on. That'll be the next one. And then after that, then we'll see. Obviously being two of you is obviously it's challenging, man. Especially if you both got stuff to do. But again, it's finding that time, and then even when you can't be asked, just get down, put something down, and I think you find your way, really.
What is it about those moments where you're really, your body or maybe even your mind's telling you that, we can leave it off for a day, we can leave it off for a weekend? What is maybe something that you remind yourself of, or that you kind of speak into existence to kind of push through and put something down, or like write maybe a part of the script? Or
I feel remembering that, number one, you ain't gonna be here forever. That's something that's important. Because something that I do a lot that I am guilty of, and I'm sure a lot of other people will be guilty of it as well. But I think taking time and just taking life in general for granted, just thinking that for some reason you're gonna be here forever when you're really not. We're getting older, and I think that's something definitely that I gotta try and keep in mind more. Also, just getting something down just helps, because sometimes the task looks so monumental, and just putting pen to paper will help so much. Imagine just an hour a day, just putting pen to paper and doing something. It doesn't have to all figure itself out straight away, but just putting that pen to paper initially. Yeah, it you start to work it out, I think. So yeah.
Okay, so that's a nice segue, actually, because one of the initial questions I asked you was what field of work you're in, and what's something that you do to sort of make sure that when you do take time away to sort of come back and get into motion again. So what is it that you do at the moment, What was sort of the educational choices that you kind of had to make to get to the position you're in? And what sort of habits do you have to sort of maintain that sort of, not necessarily productivity, but I guess discipline? Because it's easy for you to, one thing that we spoke about was take time away and kind of, experience the difficulty in getting back into work and doing your tasks. But yeah, what kind of things do you sort of make sure that you do to ensure that you're not
slacking off?
Yeah.
So I work in finance.
Finance, bro. 6'5". You got a blue eye.
Hey, listen, bro. I wish.
Nah, you're 6'5", man. They don't know this. Right now, you can be 6'5". You can be 6'7" for like.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Let me not give away too many.
Oh man.
You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, I keep them guessing.
Yeah, keep them guessing. Exactly. That's some art of bullshit. But yeah, really, I work in finance, so to be fair, it's quite fun. What I'm doing at the moment is quite fun. I'd say it's fun, definitely. But in terms of being productive, like I said, I don't find it hard at work to be productive, which is weird, because I think when it comes to personal projects, that's a lot harder. I don't actually understand why. I don't know. That's not something I've actually questioned. But yeah, like I said, checklist for me. I'm a checklist kind of person. If I've got something to do, I have to have the checklist there if I want to do it as well as I can. And yeah, like I said, I don't really find it hard. If I know I have to do something, especially at work, I just kind of have to break it down.
Do you reckon that comes from like maybe your background of, I don't know, being raised in a certain way or in a certain culture?
Oh yeah, 100%. If my mom wants something done, you should just do it, innit? You know what I'm saying? You don't really have time to mess about. Make sure you get it done. You know?
Was there anything about the way she brought you up and maybe the dynamic you guys have now, because you're older, even between siblings, that you guys are all, on it, disciplined? You kind of know when you have to just firm something and make, not necessarily the hard choice, but the hard choice of doing a chore, or when you're at work, the hardness of doing a task that you just, it's not necessarily, because if I say it's unavoidable, to the person listening, it might make it seem like, oh, we're stuck in a cage, working 9 to 5, like it's a prison. Like,
yeah, of course. Yeah.
No, not like that, but just there's something that is just part of your job description. Like you have to do it, even if it's like completely menial, boring, like I don't know, data spreadsheet. It's just something you have to do. So
it's like chores, isn't it?
Yeah, literally. So what is it about, growing up that made Chris someone who was just
get it done?
Yeah, a get it done person.
Number one, I don't like complaining. I don't know why. Like that's always been. I've never been that person to complain or overly complain. Maybe I'll let off maybe like one, but I've never been someone to overly complain about something. If I have to do it, I'm gonna have to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think both my parents are hard workers as well. Very hard workers. And I think when you see that, obviously you're gonna emulate that. You're gonna do that yourself as well. Do you know what I'm saying? And just that expectation, like when my parents wanted me or wanted something done, you just do it. Like there's not really, what can you say? What can you do? What about yourself? Do you feel like you're growing up? Do you feel like that now helps with your educational life now?
In what sense do you mean?
Like anything that your parents taught you, do you feel like there's anything that has stuck with you? That helps with your educational life, because you're doing a PhD yourself, bro, and that's a pretty big thing and a big commitment. So is there anything that you feel like has really stuck with you and it's like, yo, I remember my parents teaching me this.
I think one of the main things they obviously emphasized growing up was taking education seriously.
Mhm.
I think ever since primary school, there wasn't, you know, an amount of time that passed except that my parents in that time would have reminded me that it's a privilege to first of all be in this country, and it's a privilege to have access to education, which, you know, when I look and see everything that's happening in the world where, you know, kids don't have access to education or they're fleeing war or whatever the circumstances, seeing that they don't have the same experience in school that we did growing up. You know, my
Yeah.
parents always instilled that in me that, look, you know, we made a hard choice to come here and, you know, take it seriously, like be appreciative. And just to like fast forward a bit now, I'd say one thing that I've noticed parents make the mistake of is, you know, they'll have made that sacrifice of coming to a different country and giving their kids the opportunity, but everything that that kid has made for themselves. Again, this is not to dismiss any efforts parents out there are making who watch this, but it's also to acknowledge that you making that choice and then holding it over your kid's head,
Mhm.
it's not fair because that kid will never be able to repay you in the same way until they become a parent, by which point you're going to be
Literally.
quite old, you know? So even if they wanted to pay you back in sentiment, in gratitude, you won't be able to experience it the same because you're just of age now.
Mhm.
So I think having that balance between making them realize, you know, this is something that you might not get again, or you might not get as easily as it was back then for parents to travel, buy a house, you know, move to a different country. Like nowadays, if you and I think about that, it's hard. Like it's just in our imagination, like to actually put it on paper and make a plan of, you know, we're going to move here, we need this amount of money, we have to, you know, these are all the sort of logistics of the process.
Mhm.
Doing that right now would be quite difficult to envision. But that would be, I'd say, the first thing of reminding me and instilling that sort of, you know, this is something that was given. Um, Whether you're the type of parent who says that I gave it to you or this is something that God's orchestrated, very much comes down to how you communicate. But obviously,
Mhm.
it's part of a greater plan from my perspective. So, first of all, that education was given to me. And then the second thing I'd say is just they kind of put like a level of um, seriousness about it, which growing up was perfectly fine, right? I feel like the era we grew up in was maybe the era in which people were more privy to taking chances and taking risks. I feel like now the conversation, especially on places like LinkedIn and those sorts of professional spaces where people talk about hiring and workforce and companies and management and that sort of thing, the conversation now has kind of shifted to, you know, experience, giving people experience, access to experience, stuff like that. But back when we were growing up, maybe it would have been easier for us had there been the opportunity to gain that experience. But I
Mhm.
think by the time we were in secondary school, you know, government funded opportunities or just initiatives of giving kids in secondary school work experience or college age kids work experience, I think they were taken away for whatever reason. I don't know. Um, but it's small things like that that kind of made, maybe even indirectly, my parents emphasize just look, become smart, you know, learn, take it seriously, like do well in your exams. It's only going to help you. When I sit here now, you know, doing a PhD, like I can't do another degree after this. Like this is the final version of a degree. I can do a degree in another subject. I won't do it, but
Mhm.
there are other degrees in other subjects that I can do. But after this one, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe if I just worked more, I could have been, or I could be a bit more of a competitive candidate. Like I could
Yeah.
have done, I don't know, a year in industry. I could have done more work. I could have taken that master's. I could have, you know, um, just worked after my master's and then done a PhD in a few years or whatever it is, right? I'm thinking looking back, that I could have maximized the amount of time I'm gaining experience. But to be that version of a person who's always looking back and thinking what they could have done differently is also the version of a person who is running away from accepting where they are at that point in time. And it's something that is quite hard to do, but you have to accept that where you are at this point in life is exactly where you are meant to be. You know, your choices informed you, you had to get here. And in some ways you couldn't escape it. You know, it doesn't matter what route you take, you end up at this point in the destination of you know, your life journey. And for me, had I not experienced someone telling me education is very serious, I don't think I would have taken education about anything else serious either. You know, people hear the word education and they naturally think, you know, school, textbook, classroom. Education doesn't have to be that. You know, it can be what you teach yourself, what you teach yourself by going online, spiritual education, religious education. Like all of these things are still avenues for learning. You know, they're still disciplines, they're still sciences. Like, and it's that seriousness that they gave to just being able to learn that I feel like is best manifested in a PhD. Like a PhD on the surface seems like a very hard thing, but you know, you can ask a PhD student, you can ask, you know, some of the people in my lab a random science question. Maybe they'll know the answer, maybe they won't. You know, the sort of a law of doing a degree in the university experience is, oh, you know, you become like a expert, you become the leader in your field. It's not true. Like the leadership, the not even fame, just the reputation, that comes with time. And I feel like you have to be a certain personality to feed and thrive off that. Like for me, I'd rather have a reputation among certain people for a certain thing than be known as, you know, the scientist or one of the best scientists or whatever. Like that's not really my goal, because when I die, someone else is going to take that title anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Or
literally.
before me, there have been people who have that title anyway, right? So I'd rather make something that I'm doing more impactful to people around me than something that is not necessarily permanent. I feel like what is permanent is just the method of teaching, right? Like the whole point of a PhD is you have a topic, you research it, you know, maybe in your first year, you look at all the stuff that has been done in the last maybe 30, 40, 50 years, you know, maybe going as far back, if there is like work on it. And this doesn't have to do with science, just any topic going as far back as maybe 100 years, or depending on what topic it is, like if it's archaeology or ancient history, you know, you're looking at stuff from thousands of years ago, right?
Exactly.
Maybe the first year is kind of like organizing all the info, like making a timeline, you know, this is maybe how that topic was thought about 50 years ago, and this is how we think about it now, and this is where my project is. Because a PhD is essentially you're discovering something new. Like no one's done this. You're the person who's doing it.
That sounds fun.
And then the second and third year is kind of like, you know, for example, for me, because I'm doing a PhD in science, I'm, you know, planning experiments, I'm doing experiments, I'm gathering the data. And then in your fourth year, at least in the UK and in the US, the PhD is a bit longer. So it's like maybe 5, 6, 7 years. That's when you start to like, you're either gathering more data or you're starting to, do you know what I mean, slowly write your book, like write your thesis.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
So
think that's the thing. Yeah. So just a quick point before you go
yeah,
on. One thing you mentioned that it sounded fun, and it is fun. Like one thing I definitely noticed was my passion for science died a lot during my undergrad experience and during my PhD. Like there were definitely moments where I was waking up early or I was coming in on the odd weekend, and over time I was realizing, look, I'm not really separating my life outside of the lab to things I want to do. Maybe after my first year, I started to put my foot down and be like, look, I'm not going to come in on the weekends. I'm going to try and plan everything so that they can have that time away. And then even now, I've started to take it easy and plan my tasks so that I'm not staying too late on a Friday either. Because I don't think the whole balance of work 5 days and get 2 days off is fair at all.
I
You
don't
know,
think so either. But
so
yeah,
working 4 days and taking that Friday a bit easy, maybe, you know what I mean, finishing your tasks by 3, 4 p.m.,
that would
getting
be
off
perfect.
work, Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Having more of a time off became my priority, because I realized, like, look, even after I get this PhD, even after I start working in industry, God willing, how long am I going to work for? And any money I make, and I think we had this conversation over text maybe a while ago, was any money I make, if there's ever a situation that happens in life, because life will throw this situation at me, God will throw this situation at me, where I now have to forfeit something I worked really hard for,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to do it. Like, if something happens and it's like, okay, you know, there's a medical procedure that the UK NHS doesn't cover, you have to go to so and so country and it's gonna cost you, I don't know, 20 grand. Let's just say. And let's say at that point I've saved 30 grand. I'm throwing like 80%, almost 80% of my savings into something like that, right?
Yes, man.
So why should I place a certain level of importance or aspect of my heart or my peace on something that I know that I would give up that quickly?
Mm-hmm.
The fun thing about it is that I can now think deeply about so many things, because the PhD has taught me how to get information, make a timeline, think critically. Like, it's given me all these transferable skills that will enable me to market myself to any sector now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that makes, you know, doctoral students not untouchable, but like the cream of the crop, because the same way in just a normal bachelor degree, even if it's something that you don't realize, and that's something I hear a lot. That's something I heard a lot when I was in uni. You know, one of the first things I heard in my first lecture, there was a student before the lecturer walked in, and she was like, "Oh, what's biology anyway? Like, what's biological sciences?" And I was like, "Oh, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here if you're thinking this." Maybe that's a bit unfair, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Nah, that's crazy. Yeah.
clearly, like, your heart and mind isn't where it should be. And so, for the sake of those two things, which are worth way more than, do you know what I mean, the 70K compound interest debt that you've dropped on your education, your heart and mind are worth insurmountably more than just having, do you know what I mean, a degree.
100%.
So in situations like that, you learn, okay, that 3 years or 4, whatever degree you're doing, maybe it's 5 years because you're doing medicine, that graft you're putting in for that amount of time, when you go to an employer now and they see that you've got a degree, yes, depending on what profession it is, they might need you to have a degree, a subject specific degree. But let's say it's something like consulting, or it's being finance, where you don't have a degree, but you have experience and you know how to use the tools. And do you know what I mean? You've done it outside of your degree. The amount of time you've put into something, that's the thing that makes it valuable. You gave 3 years of your life to something, and they're like, okay, you know, if this person can stay committed for 3 years, they'll now be able to work for so and so, or lead this project for this amount of time too. And it's the same thing with the PhD. I feel like the thing that makes it as valuable as it is the time element. Had I not put in this amount of time into whatever I want to do, it wouldn't be as much. It wouldn't be giving me as much back as I gave into it, right? So that principle of giving time to stuff, I feel like, is what we should take away from our education system. It's not the way it's done. I definitely think the education system is imperfect. It's outdated. I feel like there are better ways to teach kids. And this is something that, you know, is evolving. Like, when I have conversations with, you know, my supervisors, with lecturers, even with different sort of level teachers, right? People who teach in secondary school, people who teach at college, people who teach at university, like, the conversation around how to teach, or pedagogy, that's always evolving, because kids are evolving, and it doesn't make sense to have a one cut system that fits everyone for our kids. You know, we need to be able to be educators, be people who are passing on lessons in a way that will stand the test of time. And I feel like one way that I've experienced something that is timeless is my faith. Like, the lessons I draw from talking to people from different religions, the lesson I draw from my own religion because I'm a Muslim, those sorts of stories, the parables that you get, like, for example, you get parables in the Bible, you get stories in the Qur'an. You know, you read them and you think about it, and you're like, okay, you know what, this was revealed thousands of years ago, but the lesson in it is something that it's still applicable. Like you still read it and you feel like, oh, actually, you know what? That character kind of reminds me of so and so in my life a few years ago. And then what you come to appreciate is actually humans are quite predictable what they do. And I think that's the thing that makes us more humane. Like we are unique, but you can also predict what we do. And for that very reason, we need consistent exposure to advice. We need consistent exposure to correctness. You know, people will sometimes shun making mistakes, especially in our culture, immigrant culture. You know, brown and black people know that if you make a mistake at home, sometimes you might just get jumped by your parents.
That's a jumped.
You might get jumped. But if you look at those kids now, you know, they're the ones who have that discipline. They're the ones who have that vigilance. But that being said, I don't think as a parent I would be someone who's like lashing my kid. I think there's a better way to do that version of parenting and still get the same result.
Yeah.
I feel like obviously
100%.
the way our parents grew up, they were, you know, maybe hit, and so they were like, okay, you know, to make my kid disciplined and stuff like that, I have to hit them. That was their mistake, right?
Yeah.
They have the privilege to give time and learn that actually there are different ways to parent it.
Exactly.
And you can actually achieve the same thing by doing, I don't know, this instead of hitting them. So I feel like gratitude and realizing what I have is a privilege. That and investing my time are the two things I'd say are, whatever your question was. I can't remember.
What was my question?
It was something about my education and from my childhood. What I've taken from my childhood.
Is that that was the question.
I'd say those two things because my parents were the same too, you know, like they worked for the better part of 30, 40 years, and then my dad got sick and he retired, and then my mum retired too because of her health conditions. And obviously they're like, it's not that they're, you know, in a dire situation, but they're still sick to the extent that they can't live the same quality of life maybe they were living in their 40s, right? But because they gave that amount of time that they did, they knew that, look, we'd rather you invest it into something that will make you someone I can now put into a situation and you will know how to at least figure yourself out, as opposed to someone who is put into a situation and is asking for instructions. Like you become someone who's takes initiative. You know, you can kind of like assess a situation and know, okay, you know, these are the options I might have. This option is a bit more risky. This one is a bit safer. Like you become more, not necessarily calculated, but more mindful.
100%.
So yeah, I'd say those things were the things I took away. I think that and it's those sorts of life lessons apply in just other aspects of life as well. Like one thing that I think will, you know, I pray will last a lifetime, was something my dad told me, and it was college. So it was those times where everyone's learning how to drive. Chris can't drive yet.
I was waiting for that one.
No, joking, he's learning. Are you taking lessons?
No, I've not taken a single lesson, bro.
You gotta take lessons, man. You got to at least take lessons.
I have to do it. I keep saying this, but I'm gonna make it happen.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, you were saying.
But yeah, so it was those times where everyone was kind of like doing that milestone of getting their driver's license and learning how to drive and stuff like that. And I think it wasn't after a driving lesson, but it was just one of those days where I finished late at college and he came to pick me up and we were driving home. And I liked someone at the time. And I feel like one thing parents should do when they notice their kid is into someone is, I don't know, be a bit more nurturing in that conversation. Like he saw me talking to someone at home, he probably overheard me. Just ask me, you know, don't make it awkward. Don't now drive past when I'm walking with someone and beat the horn. Don't do that. Don't be that bread. Don't do it, man. Like, it's orcs. I'm walking, trying to
That's
sell
cool.
myself, and he's driving past like, beep.
Man, beat the horn. Wow.
Like, what's going on, man?
That's funny though.
It is. Like, I look
funny.
back now and I get it. And looking ahead to the future, I'd want to be a parent who embarrasses his kid, but time and place.
Wait, so how old were you then when this happened? You must
17.
have been. Okay,
17. I
yeah.
was
Yeah,
17.
that makes sense. Do you think you would still be embarrassed by it if it happened now?
Would I be embarrassed?
Yeah, if it happened now, say you're with someone, you're talking, walking down the road, your dad drives by, beeps the horn. Would you be embarrassed by it? Now?
Maybe.
Really? I
Because
don't think you would.
it kind of just remind me of like being a child, like someone's out there watching me, like watching my every move. Do you know what I mean? Like it will make me feel like even though it would be a momentary feeling, by the way, like for those listening, it's not like, you know, I despise my dad and any little thing he does I'm critical of. But in that moment, it would feel like, oh, come on, man, let's drive, bro. Like, yeah, I'm with someone. Like, ooh, move on, mate.
It's not a big deal.
But I get where he's coming from. I completely get his approach, right? And that's something that the whole putting time into something that has helped me do is I've been able to put time into understanding who my parents are. That unfortunately hasn't always come with learning from them directly. It's come from watching them or maybe reading about parents in general to indirectly understand, okay, you know, parents of this sort of type are usually prone to doing this and stuff like that. Like, I think it would be much more enriching to, you know, sit down and parents have that conversation. But I also sympathize with the fact that, you know, sitting down and having a heart to heart isn't something that comes easy to brown and black parents. It's just not. In the ideal world it would be, but it isn't. So I feel like now the position we're in as, you know, mine and Chris's generation is being the parent who is able to sort of sit down and have that conversation with the kid, but also at the same time, when you have to be a bit more stern and put your foot down, you can also be that version of a parent, doing it gracefully, of course, but you know, there's always discipline that's needed. You know, you can't be allowed to just go off on your whims and your desires. Otherwise, you're not going to have any sort of sense of right and wrong, and that needs to be taught in a kid in order to just make someone a respectful person. But yeah, that being said, I feel like if he was to, you know, do the same thing in that moment, I kind of feel like, you know, he still feels the need to watch over me. But I get it. Like, I'm saying this now, when I have my own kids, it doesn't matter if you ask me this question. Like, if you ask me this question 4 years from now, I'm going to say, yeah, of course I am. Every time I see him, I'm going to beep. You need to know I'm looking at you.
Exactly.
I'm watching this all the time.
My mom always says it. I think there's certain things you only understand when you become a parent, innit?
But here's the thing, right? I feel like when parents say that, well, I feel like the element that they miss out is the fact that, okay, if you know that I'm only going to know this when I'm a parent, there's no need to tell me right now. When I have my kid, you can tell me everything that you want to. But right now, because here's the thing, right?
It's going to be funny once you look back and you realize, okay, they did say that.
100%. I know it's going to happen. In fact, I'm waiting for it to happen. But I'd rather that happen organically. Like, don't force it. And I feel like parents, at least immigrant parents, because of something that they went through where they kind of had to, you know, not even predict, but react, right? Things change for them. You know, parents coming from different countries, moving to the UK, the Windrush generation, like these stories that we hear all the time, right? Or that we're surrounded by. Those people were always, they were reacting to changing circumstance. So now when they talk to their kid or they're passing on life lessons to their kids, they're anticipating the fact that their future will change very quickly. And it kind of is. They're not wrong. I don't think parents have, I'm not saying parents have never been wrong. They have definitely been wrong at some points. But in principle, I don't think what they were trying to get at was wrong. Maybe the way they communicated it was, but in principle, that, you know, you have to, the thing I'm teaching you is something that you realize, and, you know, your time will become very different. And I'm seeing it now, right? Like, from when we were in secondary school to now, there have been diseases which have been cured, technologies like 20, 30 years ahead. In some countries, it's even further ahead. Hospitality has changed, finances changed, how we do finances changed. Our practices have changed as a society. How to take care of yourself. Self-care wasn't something that we spoke about in secondary school. We speak about it now, right? So many things have changed. But in being reactive, we haven't been able to maybe appreciate or think of those changes in a bigger picture. And so we kind of day to day, week to week, year to year have experienced those changes, and we've felt the need to maybe catch up, or we're behind, and we're kind of in that buffer. We're always buffering. And I feel like that's what's left behind from parents who moved to a country and have lived a life which has been reactive, and they were never people who just took their time with stuff. So, to me and you, to anyone listening who's of our age, I'm 24, Chris is 23, 24.
You're turning 24.
Turning 24. So people in sort of like this age, like a similar age to us, in the future, when if you have kids, don't aim to be the parent who's reactive. Like, because here's the thing, right? When our kids now react to certain stuff, or they react in a way that we don't expect, at the end, the mechanism that they're using is still reaction. It's not, okay, let me pause, take a breath, think, and then respond. We're not teaching them that, because all they were exposed to growing up was reaction. So now if it happens to us, as opposed to us doing it to them, you can't sit there and be surprised, like, oh, where did they learn this? You showed them that. You showed them that that's the only way to do it. But there's different ways to do it, right? So I think, so what we were talking about initially of embarrassment, momentarily I'd feel maybe a lapse in trust. But I'd move on. And I feel like being an adult now, I feel like just the conversation surrounding relationships and partners with my parents has changed as well. I think I've been way more transparent with the people I've liked, the people I've wanted to pursue. Okay. And yeah, the gem that I wanted to mention that has always stuck by me, as well as the element of being grateful and giving time. I feel like at least those two things in a relationship would cause a relationship to thrive. Being grateful with your partner and making time up with them and doing things together. The one thing my dad said to me was, don't burn yourself to keep someone else warm.
Wow.
And it was that time where, he picked me up from school, we were driving, and, he'd noticed over time that, I was talking to someone. He was like, whoever it is, whoever you like, just keep in mind that, look, don't burn yourself to keep someone else warm. And I think it was because he'd noticed that maybe on a day that, I started college late, I was maybe on the phone a little too late. And to be honest, looking back now, he wasn't wrong about that. Like, as much of a lover boy I am, I think I'm certified lover boy. Without the allegations. As much as I'm a certified lover boy, I would never gamble my sleep. Like,
no, never.
I might like someone immensely, but to stay up on the phone all night, I can't do it, man. Looking back now, because I understand the value of sleep, like having a working week, like a regular week, having hobbies, having passions, all of that. Like, rest is so important. And equally, just like one advice I'd want people to take away from like this conversation of ours is, don't, like, as hard as it is, and your body will certainly react because it's a new thing that you're learning, right? And it comes back to that reaction of the topic of reaction. Like, when there are elements in your environment that are changing, your body will react. And so it's a matter of training it the same way you have to train yourself to be a person who you'd want your kids to be. Whenever you're, feeling like you need to rest, you need to unplug, like, listen to your body, man. Like, as guilty as it might make you feel, like, just firm it, swallow the guilt, do something, distract yourself. And over time, you'll realize that it's easier to say no. It's easier to say no to things. It's easier to prioritize. And I feel like the right person for you whoever that may be, will be someone who, because they're practicing that themselves, don't understand.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if you
100%.
message them, you tell them like, you know, I need time, like I just need to like recharge, or I want to, do you know what I mean? I'm feeling sleepy. I want to go to sleep. At that point, it was really nice talking to you. You know, get your sleep. We'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, that's simple.
And it's little. And that's the thing, though, bro. Like you'd think that those simple things are hard to do, or not even hard to do. They're easy to do. It's easy to say, but so many people find it hard to do because it's simple. Like we've been conditioned, like the whole, you know, one of the, you know, I mentioned that the education system was imperfect. One of the imperfections of the education system, I don't think it's limited to this country. In general, I'd say, actually no, maybe in this country, because I haven't studied all the other education systems in like other countries and done like a cross comparison. But for us in the UK, one thing that they teach you is, you know, you have a problem, you break it down, and that completely agree with it so far. But then, no, you know, you have to understand this and then understand that, and I feel like the way they communicate that language is very complex. So naturally, whenever they're tackling situations in life outside of school, that school said, oh, you have to prepare for by going to school, those situations are actually much simpler than they're made out to be. But because we've been conditioned to think of things in a complex way, if it doesn't meet that threshold of complexity, we're like, it can't be that simple.
Literally,
Can't be that simple. But it is. It is. That's all it is. And a good example of it, like people joke about it a lot, is LinkedIn. Like you see how people are selling themselves on LinkedIn. It'll be the most basic role, but they've sold it in a way that, oh, mate.
Yeah, I know, it's mad.
What you've done. Do you know what I mean?
That's
But
the whole.
the reason is because the culture has become one that it has to, you know, something that you could say in 3 words, got to say it in 10.
Literally 10. We got to wrap paragraph about it. It's nuts.
You got to use the word stakeholder, and you got to use the word
and it's like, yo,
interests, and this and that. And it's like, to an extent, I agree with you. You know, if that is your field, if, for example, for a role that you're applying to, a CV that you need to like tailor, in a cover letter, you need to use those words, go for it. But the motivation you have behind using that terminology, you shouldn't be using that motivation in the aspects of your life that have always been simple and should stay simple.
Yeah.
And the thing I feel like that exemplifies this I guess lesson that I'm trying to not necessarily teach people, but convey, is if you look at a kid and you ask a kid a very complex question, the answer might be simple, and they might even just say they don't know. If you ask an adult the same question, they're full compelled to say something.
Yeah.
Like I have to say so. I have to fill up this time. I have to give an answer.
Yep.
You could just say you don't know, or you could just say no, or you could say yes, and you could say, oh yeah, you know, good question. I like so and so, or I like this thing because. Give your reason, and then finish it. Move on. But that approach, right? I feel like it's just lost. Like, and I think, you know, social media, the way it's gone, it's definitely made people connected. You know, it's connected us, but it's disconnected us from the tools of conversation. It's given us the platform to converse, but it's taken away our tools to converse.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right. And in school, you'd have icebreakers, you know, or maybe you go to a new school, you know, and the teacher's like, oh, you know, Chris is new to our school, you know, make him feel welcome. You know, you might go and sit at a table. You do an icebreaker. You might go and play a game of football outside at lunch. But all the time, whilst you're a kid, you're not thinking about you have to impress someone, or you have to meet a certain requirement. You have to, you know, be a certain persona. You're kind of unapologetic. You're a kid.
Yeah. You're just yourself, innit?
And I feel like
you know what else to be.
If people were to sort of channel that sort of not mindset, but outlook more of keeping things simple, life won't seem as complex as it is. And that's not to say that people should be naive. You know, there are certainly certain aspects of life which warrant taking time, being detailed, being serious about, 100%.
Mhm.
But if it's at the cost of your well-being, if it's at the cost of things that you can do over a period of time as opposed to in a short period of time, then take the option where you take a longer period of time. Because at least then, if something happens and it doesn't work out, maybe it wasn't meant to, but at least compared to if you had tried to do, for example, a short film project, we've got to get this filming done in a month. But then someone on the filming team is like, no, I think we should give ourselves a 4-month window because we're all working and we have different schedules. Let's say now all of you guys are like, okay, let's go with the 1-month timeline, and it doesn't work in that 1 month. And because, I don't know, arguments happen, disagreements happen, you guys will give up and that short film doesn't happen, and you wait until the next project. Had you taken the longer option, you might have found, actually, you know what, we could do this, we could try that, and you might have ended up with a short film that worked really well.
Yeah.
But because you tried to rush it, it wasn't the same. That being said, obviously you tell me what you think. Would you say you still struggle with procrastination? Number one. And number two, do you feel like a lot of people nowadays, because they're surrounded by success stories like overnight, especially on TikTok, making money off social media, stuff like that, do you feel people, having been surrounded by stories where people have been successful in a very short amount of time, you feel like people around you are now rushing to something that, in the grand scheme of things, was always going to take time anyway?
Procrastination, definitely, yeah. Therefore, something still that I think I struggle with. I think a lot of people are going to struggle with it. And then in terms of the other question, I would say so. I was thinking about this the other day, and even with crypto and that stuff, it's like people becoming rich off of, like, they're kind of doing nothing and they're becoming rich.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is mad, you know? And I think, especially with the younger generation, a lot of them want to get the wrong idea. Where some people get rich doing this stuff, you know, we're still gonna need doctors and that stuff, bro. Like, these kids still need to be going to school. You know what I'm saying? We're still gonna need like police officers and that. Like, you still need to go to school, do your education. Yeah, I think that a lot of people are looking for a shortcut. I don't necessarily blame them. Like I said, getting rich off something like crypto in such a short period of time, it's madness. Like, if I could do that right now, if you ask me, yo, Chris, put your money into this crypto and they give you X amount of money, I would do it as well. But I think that you can't escape the grind, man. You can't run away from the grind. If you're trying to build something meaningful, then
you can't rush it.
You can't rush it. You gotta put your head down, pen to paper, like I always say. So that's what I think. This whole crypto thing is crazy, though. I see people getting rich every day, and it's like off of nothing. It's mental.
Do you know what it is, though? Do you know what it's like? You mentioned that, and it reminds me of, like, it makes me think about why we're not in that position. And, like, if someone wants to give me £1 million right now,
I can't take it. If I'll be honest
it's not
with you,
that I can't take it. It's not that I can't take it. It's like, I definitely take it.
No, but bro, listen.
I'd budget. Here's the thing. I'd budget a bit, but I know eventually I'd get comfortable with having that amount of money, and I'd blow it.
That's exactly my point, and that's why for some of us it's like, I'm happy that that's never happened for some of us, because that would bring about a certain type of laziness that would be hard to get rid of.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? So
I feel like that's the thing that maybe our parents didn't appreciate about, the stories they've heard over time, stories in the Bible, the stories in the Qur'an of these messengers from God, these prophets of God, these people who were very close to God, and they didn't have a hi-fi life. They weren't necessarily privileged. They were thrown about, they were ridiculed by people.
Hey.
Let's just take, the example of Jesus, right? But his character is the thing that ended up lasting. And in the same way, the fact that we don't have access to that level of luxury in this world is because we know that there's a greater purpose, there's a greater luxury in the next world,
Exactly.
and had we been given that, maybe we would have forgotten that purpose of ours. We would have forgotten that there's something to work towards. And I think if our generation of parents had been a bit more, not necessarily religious, but they were more eager to learn how to apply our religion to whatever life they were living. And I feel like that's what religion is there for. It's there for you to take lessons from, to manage your life at the moment. It's not asking you to live like a monk. That's a misconception. Religion is there to make you adaptable. It's there to make you mindful. It's there to remind you of, look, the things that you're working towards don't just have reward in this world, but there's an element of unseen that you can't see, that work is also paying towards. That's why it's worth doing, especially in moments where you can't see reward immediately, right? Being surrounded by immediate gratification. It's harder to now appreciate stories where, I don't know, Jesus strives for as long as he has, and he gets, the Christians believe that he was crucified. I believe he was taken up to heaven. The point is that his life ended, and so among his people, that's what they remember. Oh, he's gone now. He worked all hard. He preached the gospel. He preached believing in God, and look what happened to him. His life ended. There's no worth believing in God anymore. Like, if that's what you take away from a story of working hard, then you've lost you've lost you've lost sight of the lesson, right? Or the lessons from his life, and that goes for all the other stories. And had our parents been more accepting of that, I don't think they would have had the same dreams as they give us. And most of those dreams, if you was to go to a parent right now of our generation, born in the 50s and 60s, and you ask, oh, what do you wish for your kid? A lot of them will be like, oh yeah, I really want so and so to be successful. I want him to make as much money as he can and have a big house and drive this and do this and do that. Like, for them, those are the external cues, measures, predictors of success. But then you go to someone maybe who's, they want their kid to be successful, but they're doing it with God in mind. Those dreams immediately become different. I want my kid to have a good impact. I want my kid to, be helpful. I want him to serve people who are in need. Immediately, those dreams now become ones which don't have a physical mark. They have an emotional mark. They have something which people remember, and there's not necessarily a piece of paper or a car key that you can show to say, okay, look, this is how hard I worked. This is my garage. Instead, it's more about, this is how hard I worked, and these are all of the people I helped. And it's not to sort of big yourself up and, I don't know, say you're into charity, go to like a village or something, and you stick a camera in a needy person's face. Oh, look, I'm helping this person. It's not to do that. It's to show that you saw that, look, this thing that I have is impermanent. It's a piece of paper or it's a piece of plastic. Yes, it has value in one sense, but in another sense, it really doesn't. And so, as hard as I work to earn it, just as easily I should give it away.
Exactly.
And we see examples like that in our daily life, right? Like, you worked hard for 3 years to get a degree, you get a piece of A4 paper.
Piece of paper, yeah.
Piece of paper. And again, this is not to knock the education system. It's just to show that in life, actually, you might put a lot of effort, energy, hopes and dreams, aspirations into something, and you won't see it the way you want it to.
Exactly.
or it won't manifest in the way that you want it to. And at that point, people are very easily discouraged and they're like, oh man, I can't do this. But at that point in time, you have to realize actually, whatever response has come out of whatever you've done, one, it was meant to be this way. Number two, it can definitely change. You know, say for example, you guys make your short film and I don't know, it gets 100 views. But after the fifth short film, you get contacted by, you know, a mid-sized company, production company, and they're like, oh, you know, we really like the work that you're doing, and we want to make a full-length feature for you guys, or with you guys. Like, we want you to come on board. Had you given up after that first couple of views?
That's the thing. It's like I was saying, you can't run from the grind, man. You gotta keep.
You wouldn't have seen that. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's again, I can't remember how we got into this.
That's a good thing about talking.
It's true. It's true. You can't keep track. It's good to have moments like this.
It escapes you. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Okay, so I know I said that we're gonna get to. So for those watching, I had some questions prepared that I kind of wanted to use as like a structure, and I think we've maybe so far discussed the first two. It's been like an hour and a half. I mean, maybe only covered the first two, but if anything,
we've dipped into the others a little bit. Some of them.
We have. We've dipped into them. We've dipped into them for sure. But I'll ask just two more. I'll ask just two more because I have to go and pray as well. I'm sure Chris has stuff to do.
Bro.
So my two questions are, I feel like they're good questions because it kind of like wraps up at least what the purpose of the first conversation was. I'm sure when you're next available, we can set up another one of these.
Part 2, the sequel.
Exactly. So the first question of the two last questions is, we've been friends since secondary school and we've taken very different paths. What do you think has kept us close despite those differences? And then the second last question is, looking back on our school days, what were the moments that stood out to you that defined just the secondary school experience, but also our friendship?
The first question. Wait, sorry, repeat the first question.
We've been friends since secondary school and we've taken different paths.
Yeah.
What do you think has kept us close despite those differences?
I think number one, we're two guys that don't really take things personal. You get what I'm saying? So if one of us doesn't reach out, or if one of us is busy, we don't necessarily get upset about it. You get what I'm saying? Just yeah, I think that's a massive thing. Because you're not always going to get the time to see each other. I think that is a very big thing. And something as simple as, even when, I don't know if you remember, but during the lockdown, we go for walks and stuff.
Yes.
Even something as simple as that, which, you know, we got to get back to doing stuff like that, man. But something as simple as that, I think it helps a lot. This is something simple. You don't spend money. It's just really you and your friend just chopping up, really, innit? So
okay.
I think that helped us remain close. I think that understanding of, yo, like, we're both doing stuff. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're always, the good thing about us is we're always able to just pick up like nothing's happened. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's good because we kind of, so obviously we live in our own lives, and it's like when we do come back to catch up, it's like we're just sharing. It's like you're sharing war stories.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you come back and you're sharing war stories.
I like that, war stories. I like that.
Yeah, which is, you know, that's something I cherish. That's something that's yeah, I like that.
I think for the people out there who are listening who feel like, you know, maybe they haven't reached out to someone that they were in contact with a lot, I feel like kind of just diving in and taking that leap of faith, you'll probably realize that that person was going to plan to reach out to you too.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
what
one
I'm
thing
saying.
to do it. And the second thing I'd say is one thing I feel like that kind of makes mine and Chris's friendship easy is I feel like the whole, getting to know who they are, their siblings, their family structure, um, what they like, what they do, stuff like that. I feel like that period of time really passed in secondary school. So now those aspects of either, mine or Chris's life, they kind of just become anchor points.
Yeah.
Like we can talk the way we've done today, but if we were, for example, on one of our walks, then some of the beginning questions will be, like, how's your fam? How's Steph doing, which is Chris's brother?
Yeah.
Like you just have those basic kind of catch up questions, and then you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But
And even the interest as well.
that approach to like talking, I
Mhm.
think is quite an easy way to sort of have those sorts of conversations with people.
Yeah, even interest as well. Like when Marvel was in a better place, we're both heavily into that, really. So
Yeah,
I think sharing interest as well. That's something that's
100%.
it's not. I don't want to say it's important to me, but it makes things easier.
100%. I think also like when you're not in touch with someone for a while, and you do come back and you start catching up with them, those are the moments that the differences also like come to light. And sometimes it was the distance that was needed for you to realize actually this person is different, and that difference, had it not been there, wouldn't have made our friendship that much more I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like unique, or oh, actually I didn't know you were ever into that. Because they needed that time and space away from you to learn that about themselves. And that's the thing, like the reason I don't think either of us have ever taken that time and distance personally is because we've realized in that period of time away from each other is when you learn about yourself. And it's not because had you been with that person, you wouldn't have learned that thing. But that because that person was comfortable, you were like, yeah, actually, you know what? Even if I'm not on my phone for a very long time because I'm working something, or I have a short film to help manage or whatever. When I then message Muslim, like, oh yeah, we're almost done with the short film, like here's a snippet or something, what do you think? It's, first of all, the fact that you're working on a short film, I had no idea. It's not rehearsed. I told you, I had no idea that Chris was working on a brand. This is completely news to me. But had I not spoken to him for as long as I haven't spoken to him, and it's not that we don't talk at all, like we text here and there, but had that period of time not gone until we had a long form conversation, I don't think Chris would have been in the mind to, I don't know, start a brand.
Yeah.
So I'd say, yeah, for sure what you said, I definitely agree with. So the last question, looking back on our school days, what were the moments that stood out to you, and what moments would you say defined our friendship?
We were of the same friend group, really, weren't we? So
Yes, sir.
I say any moment basically that had us busting up laughing, that's it. I'm trying to think back if there's any I can remember. But I think those moments where things, because it's stuff that you even recall now, like when you link up with the man, them,
Yes.
and you get back to talking about, you reminisce, and it's like, yo, I think that's what really defines it. I'm a simple guy, so even something like lunchtime, we used to play ball, didn't we? Even something like that defines it. And I think
there's got to be some highlights. You got to be some highlights that you remember.
I'm trying to think, because I know there's stuff that's happened, but
the only when the way you describe it, right, busting up laughing, the moment that comes to my head immediately was, I think it was a non-school uniform day, and I don't know what it was, but Miss Croft had kept us back.
Oh yeah,
for detention or something. I don't know. Either it was Abdi or Harvard making faces. None of us could start laughing.
Those two are the worst.
And it made it worse. It made it worse. You stayed inside for longer. But I feel like that is a good example of what Chris means when he says busting up.
Yeah, just the moments you can even recall now where it's like, yo, like we were Like this really made us laugh. I think even something as simple as us doing like our group, not our group, even our class, like we had all our classes were together, weren't they? Basically all of them, like we're all in the same class for everything. So even something as simple as that makes you feel like, I don't know, makes you feel like you're like part of a family, innit? Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, with triple science and that, like
One.
that's what I'm saying.
W7 man, W7 man.
That was the gang, but that made you feel like you were really part of a family. That was
Go on,
fun.
man. I know. There's one or two moments. It's got to be. It's got to be in your head.
I'm trying to think. You know what it is? It's hard because it's like you want to keep it in a place where you relate to the viewer, innit? Let me try to think. And the thing is, we would laugh at such stupid stuff.
Yes.
That I don't even know if anyone else would laugh at it as well. I think we were just that kind of group that would just laugh at stupid. So it's like,
I'm trying to remember one. All right, another moment that comes back to me was so for the viewers out there, fortunately, the way our school was set up was that all the year 11s were together. So me and Chris were in the same sort of form group, and for people who might be watching from another country, form is basically your kind of mini cohort as part of the larger year that all of the students are in. And that's where you'd go at the beginning of your day and maybe at the end of your day, depending on what the day was, like if it was just a normal school week or the last week of term or something. And you'd go to that class with your form, and you'd kind of just they'd take the register, you'd kind of look at what you have lessons for the day, stuff like that, and then you'd go on and go to your different classes. And I remember once, or not once, I don't know how long it was for. I'm not sure if you remember him. I think his name was Muad, the small Somali kid.
Was he younger?
He was younger. He was younger.
Yeah, he was younger. Yeah.
I think he was either in year 10, maybe in year 9. And this is a practice in maybe UK schools. I'm not sure if it's a practice in international schools. Whenever there's a misbehaving child, a teacher will take the misbehaving child and give it to another teacher.
Yeah.
So Muad was always someone who, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just him being cheeky, but he'd always, especially whenever we would have like a double science lesson or we'd have science like first period, before he'd go to his class during that registration period in the morning, I don't know, Miss Spray would be like, oh, give out such and such to everyone. He'd always come by and he'd have something to say to us. He'd always come by and he'd have something to say. And I think it was that kind of like, you can't knock it because he has the to say it.
Yeah.
It was one of those ones, and I'm sure there are other moments that will probably come to our minds after the call.
Do you remember the time where I don't know what it was, but it was something, I don't know if it was like some Britain Appreciation Day or something. And then so we had to wear something with, I think, something that related to the UK in some sort of way. I don't know. I don't even remember what it was. Okay. But yeah, so obviously we had a non-school uniform. For some reason, I decided to wear like a New York jumper or some shit.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
When I walked in, Mr. Bowman just took the piss out of me, bro.
I remember this.
The worst part is I didn't even clock in my head. Like I wasn't thinking about it in my head. I was just thinking, yo, I need to wear colors that match with the. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, my man took the piss out of me. The man them still don't let that go today. Like the man them still take it. I'm just like, wow.
I'd forgotten about that, man. But shout out to Mr. Bowman. Very disciplined, very inspiring teacher. But yeah, man, I feel like that's a good note to end part 1 on. I think we've discussed each other's lives. We've discussed kind of like the lessons we've learned, and we've kind of brought it back to a place where we've done the things that, you know, we'd said we want to do as adults going into the future, of being grateful, kind of like been appreciative of the secondary school times, and just our time together that we've known each other in general. So any last words that you have out there?
Not really, because
any updates about the live projects? When can I come and audition?
Broski, whenever you want, really. Like when we got some stuff on, I'll be posting about it. Don't worry.
Yeah, man. I'll keep an eye out. And also, when I'm editing this video, I'll try and put the lie handle in the video as well. Everyone,
I love that, bro.
Go and take a look at it. Heed some lessons from it. Chris has always been someone who's, you know, thought deeply about certain things, and I feel like the purpose of just us having this conversation and all the future podcast episodes as well will be to focus on having not a deep conversation necessarily in terms of topic, but deep in the sense that we're taking our time, we're not rushing, you know, we're letting our thoughts just flow. So yeah, man. I appreciate your time, Aurora.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, no, man, it was an honor. I really enjoyed it. I'm very surprised that we couldn't cover the questions, but I like that. Yeah, it's something I've learned for next time as well. It just means that we have more topics to talk about next time, God willing. So I will let you go, bro. I'm gonna get ready to pray myself as well. Yeah, I will be in touch when this episode's all edited.
Come on, man. Come on. And for part 2.
Yes, part two as well. I'll text you in a minute to let me know what your availability is like. Cool. I think November should be okay. December, I've got time booked off from the 16th. So just a week before Christmas. Obviously, you'll be busy, but
16.
Maybe not that week, but obviously you might be, do you know what I mean, preparing and like getting presents and stuff. So
you have Christmas off.
Yeah, we got Christmas off. Off here. So I did it strategically. I took the week off before Christmas,
and then 2 weeks off. That's what I'm saying. This is how you got to live your life now.
Exactly, man. It is life right now. You got to use the annual leave smart.
Word up.
Take care. It was awesome having you guys. You know, like, comment, and subscribe, and do all of those amazing things. And if you have any questions or topics that you want me and Chris to discuss, drop them in the comments below, and yeah, we'll get to it. All right, bro. Take care.
Ciao. Peace.
Peace, bro. Peace.